Well, good morning, fans of the flock of, was it a flock of rabbits? Red rabbits? I'm not sure what a group of rabbits is.
I don't know what it is either. I know they live in hutches, but I'm not sure what a group of them is called.
I'm sure somebody out in our audience will let us know. But good morning, investors. Welcome to our 2026 selection show for our best small companies. My name is Mark Robertson. I'm joined here by my dear colleague from the north, that magnificent mathematician, Ken Kavula. Good afternoon, Ken.
Good morning to you, Mark. It's still morning, okay? I know we've been at this for about an hour and a half already, but it's still morning, okay?
It's later than I think, apparently. Yeah, I've got a soccer game to get to here after we complete our mission. But, hey, and speaking of mission, I left the spacesuits on us, and just for... I now consider that a good luck charm. So,
and Mark, we're going to give George a title. George is going to be our fact checker, okay? George Mackey out in our audience comes up with our answers almost immediately for us. It's a colony of rabbits, Mark.
A colony. I did not know that. Right. So now we've learned something early in the morning. But hey, yeah, I'll tell you, Ken, I'm giddy. First of all, you won't grumble when I talk about the results of our selections for the year.
And, you're allowed to talk about them today. Okay.
But pretty good stuff. So let's go ahead and get underway. We have a full program. Strap yourselves in, everybody. No investment recommendation is intended. That's the most important thing to take away. This is an educational demonstration. We are basically going to go through and look for exciting, promising, smaller, faster growing companies. And sometimes those can be extremely rewarding. And there are other times when they are the opposite of extremely rewarding. So as we talk about them, keep that in mind. We will be illustrating a lot of the methods of the modern investment club movement as we go forward. These are our opinions, and I'm going to repeat it. Some of these are going to be non-core early stage companies, and some of them are decidedly speculative. So you guys all know what to do.
The vocabulary from the investor's guide, from the Better Investing Investor's Guide, that suggests that some of these choices will be non-traditional.
There you go. And we may own some of these. I will tell you, I will own some of these for sure, if I don't already. If you'd like copies of the slides, or if you have follow-up questions, Mark R. at manifestinvesting.com, kkavula1 at comcast.net. The slides are busy. There's a lot of information on the slides. It truly is a discussion deck, but you will have the complete list. You don't have to scratch down numbers, and we will make copies of these slides available to anybody who wants them. So with all that by the wayside, shall we get underway, Ken?
Yeah, the only thing Mark forgot to say is that we will have this up on YouTube in the next day or so. So if you're looking to repeat the dialogue that goes along with the slides, you can go to YouTube and find the presentation.
All right, just very quickly, we're going to talk about, obviously, our results from last year, pick our 2026 companies, and then share with you some of our guiding thoughts. These are not rules. These are not laws. These are just kind of some guiding principles that we love the word reasonable and considered. And we want to be assertive in finding these type of companies, but we want to avoid being aggressive, and we'll talk about what that looks like. What would you like to add to that, Ken?
Nothing much.
Okay. And there may be time for Q&A. You never know. Sometimes we go pretty quick. Here is our update. It's a couple of reminders. First of all, you can find smaller companies. Those are 3 actual companies displaying up straight and parallel up at the top. I don't remember which companies are. It doesn't matter. They are out there, and you can find them. Sometimes you do have to settle for a little bit less track record, and that ups the uncertainty and the speculative nature of anything. Anything that has less years of operation is by definition more speculative. And Ken, I hope you're happy with the size of the red bar this year.
I am very happy with the size of the red bar. It feels comfortable to get back to beating the market decisively, Mark.
I will admit that when 4:01 p.m. Eastern Time rolled around yesterday afternoon, I was tempted to get out an adult beverage, but I had to do that thing on the left. I assumed the role of Pumbaa and found my grandsons, and we went trick-or-treating. So the trick-or-treat thing is just a reminder. We do this every year. We're 20 years now, Ken. Wow. All right. Here's kind of an interesting chart that we put up for the first time last year, just pointing out that, again, we think in terms of all of the above investing. So the chart with the candlesticks, the price chart that you see here is the value line arithmetic average. That is equally weighted. So all 15 or 1,600 or 1,700 companies have the same contribution to it. With the reason we like it is it's got a number of medium and smaller size companies, and there are actually some pretty good spans historically where those smaller companies outperform the S&P 500. That is not true now. And those of us that remember the late 1990s, you can see that orange surge back in the late 1990s. That was the last time we had something like the Magnificent Seven. So what's this say to you, Ken?
Well, unfortunately, Mark, I remember the surge into the year 2000, and that was a bubble. And I'm not really happy to see that surge just kind of beginning again in 24, 25 here. So we'll have to just watch it carefully and see where that's taking us.
And if it is a bubble in the Magnificent Seven, first of all of us are invested in portions of the Mag 7, but you got to have representation in those smaller companies. So that's why we're here this morning.
I guess the other thing I want to say, Mark, is that you look at that steep decline in 2008-9 right there, and then you look at what's happened since that point. And even though we've used this a number of times in our promotions and in our webinars and everything, I think we need to just keep reminding folks that things do get better. Don't panic when the market goes down, and keep your eye on the future rather than on the present or the immediate past. Those little they weren't little, but those speed bumps tend to go away as you get further and further from the bump itself.
And you can see there are waves. This is a dance, and the music changes. Hopefully the music never stops, but the music does change, and just something to keep in mind. This is kind of a fun slide. Won't spend a lot of time on it, but these are the top performing companies over the 20 years. And a couple reminders. You've got a couple repeat champions. The company did very well one year and proceeded to do very well the next year. What's your favorite on here?
Well, I have a real soft spot for Neogen. It's a Michigan company, and it led us off to our very first win in this best small companies concept. What I notice is not so much that there's a favorite on the list, but that my investing has changed. At one time, I owned probably 60% of the companies on this list, but today I only own 5 or 6 of them. So that a company doesn't necessarily stay a winner forever. And 2006 to 2025 is a big space. That's a really large amount of time. 20 years is a long time to hold a stock, and I don't hold anything from that first list anymore in any of my portfolios. From that, I'm sorry, I said first list. From that one on the right, from 2006 through 2016, I don't own any of those stocks. The first one that I own today is 2017's winner, Universal Display.
So there's constant evolution and change.
Yep.
And yes, Kevin Gillogly, I still hold Western Alliance on that 2021 appearance.
So do I, Kevin.
Tecnoglass has been on the list the last 3 years, and it's doing pretty well. And of course, thank you, Credo Technology. So here's a look at the slide which featured Credo a year ago, or Credo, I guess it's Credo. And You know, I searched really carefully, Ken. I think this was my idea.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't. Where did we get the idea for Credo?
From me, okay.
From you, okay. All right, data centers. Not much has changed there. Everything seems to be pretty powerful. But that was the slide, and it is related to semiconductors indirectly. And apparently, I asked the question: did they use graphene? We just want to keep graphene on our radar. You know, if some small company out there commercializes graphene in a meaningful way, it will be on our list.
This came, Mark, from a discussion of data centers and all the different kind of things that go into them and the things that have to happen. And this name popped up in a single sentence on one of the CNBC programs about a year and a quarter ago. I thought it was a very interesting concept that they were going to find a way to speed up connectivity. And so I did a dive into it, found out a little bit about it, and suggested we look at it for our list then.
It's a really smart company. I mean, or optimizers. That's what they do, and good stuff. So they didn't make the list this year, so that's why we wanted to talk about it from last year. Here's a look at the 20 years, and we're happy with winning 75% of the time. And you can see that this actually dates back to before 2006. Our community has long looked at the best small companies feature in Forbes, which sometime about 10 years ago, actually 11 years ago now, they started chasing unicorns and became less of a focus for us trying to find investable ideas. So, well, you know, for me, now Ken being he's a 1%er, so he does some of that unicorn stuff, but, you know, so pretty good track record.
A 1%er, okay.
Good track record, and we're happy. We're giddy. Longer term, 15.2 versus 12. Now, what's interesting is, you know, sometimes when one door shuts, another one opens. How about that, Ken? How was that for a segue? And
all right.
When Forbes shut us off, we sat there, scratched our chins, and said, should we just quit doing this? And the answer was, why don't we do it like an investment club or George Nicholson would do it? And you know, how can we look for companies, you know, that fit the description of being small, faster growing, and with decent quality? So we basically went through an exercise, and we'll show you the criteria. We basically better investingized the Forbes effort. How's that, Ken?
That's a good segue for the next slide, Mark.
And I'll tell you, we have outperformed the market 9 out of 11 years. Ken blames that first failure on me talking about it too much. And sure enough, we got a little bit, we lost our humility after 7 straight years. We said we were going for Bill Miller, and the great humiliator got us. But we are up to a point where the return, doing it better investing style, we now are at 17.7%. That's annualized. And again, for context, less than 5% of the actively managed equity funds out there have better performance. So that's a pretty good segue. And a lot of fun. And yes, the sorter hat is on there. I had a 8-year-old explain to me in great detail the sorter hat last night, Ken.
Okay, good. So we know what to do with it. All right.
We do. All right, and just this is just a look back at actually 2 years ago. Just real quickly, the reason we included this is this year, as you'll see on the next slide, first year that we didn't have a company acquired along the way in a long time. Shockwave was a Matt Spielman special back in 2024, and Johnson & Johnson agreed with Matt Spielman and took ownership of the company. So that didn't happen this year, but you also get, what else did we want to show here, Ken? You were talking about the distribution, weren't you?
Well, I think it's a pretty good example of the rule of five, but it's also very tightly grouped. This is one of the more tightly grouped lists, going plus 75 to minus 75 approximately. Usually we have an outlier or two at the very top and an outlier or three at the very bottom. So we don't see that in this 24 list, but we're going to move to the next list, and we probably should go there now.
Boy, do we have an outlier on this one.
Yep. And it shows the what a single home run can do for you. And Credo certainly was a home run this year, moving up close to 400% in 1 year. So if you listened to us a year ago on the day after Halloween, and if you put a little bit of money into our top pick, then you're a very happy camper right now. We also, this year, don't have some of the gigantic losers that we sometimes have in these small company portfolios. When I look at ARS Pharmaceuticals at the bottom at down only 60%, I'm reminding myself that we've seen companies down near 100% at the bottom of this list a number of different times. So again, we are looking at companies in many cases that we never look at as normal creators of better investing type portfolios. We're looking at companies that are just emerging. And again, I wasn't kidding when Nicholson called them non-traditional. And he said there's always room in your portfolio if you know what you're doing for 20 or 25% of your portfolio to be in these non-traditional stocks. We've been doing a lot of research, a lot of work, a lot of looking at people that remind us how few home runs you really have to hit in order to be a successful investor over your career of investing.
Good stuff. So Credo is obviously one of my favorites. I wish I'd have bought it. I suppose you did buy some of that one.
I did buy Credo, and I bought it way back when I brought it to you, Mark, only because I find that if I don't buy a little tiny bit of something, I don't watch it as carefully as I should.
Well, there you go. All right, a little bit of foreshadowing for the audience. Ardelyx was in the bottom three on Thursday. A little foreshadowing there. Nice little segue there, huh? Good stuff. And I thought we were going to talk about just one last moment on this slide. The ones that ended up at the bottom were companies that tended to disappoint a little bit with their 2025 sales versus their 2024. The lower the quality rating and the more they missed or flattened out a bit, the higher the prices paid. So that's part of our selection criteria for this year. At least, you know, there's no formula or, again, no rules, no laws, but it's something we notice as we go down the list. So Ken, would you like to review what we ended up with when we said, why don't we spend some time, much like an investment club or a better investing practitioner would do? And by the way, that slide up there with the haystack and the American Gothic, that was the one who put an end to our winning streak. So probably should get that one off of there.
But probably don't need that on the presentation anymore. Okay,
that's right. 7-7. Well, yeah, the Great Humiliator fixed that. Go ahead, Ken.
Well, it was a revelation to both of us when the statement was made that you need to look for small companies that look just as good as some of the medium-sized and large companies that exist. That wouldn't be true constantly when you bought a small company, but it would be true many, many times. And that meant that quality mattered. Even for a small company, you had to have certain quality characteristics. Even if it couldn't have a long history, you wanted to see it have profit margins or sales growth in a certain place that gives it the whole concept of a higher quality growth stock. We know that sales matter. And we've been looking at portfolios of successful mutual funds and ETFs, and we've discovered that The number that Nicholson originally gave for sales growth to reach the 15% double your money goal that we talk about in Better Investing, he talked about 12.5%. And with dividends having decreased significantly as a portion of stock appreciation, we think that that number, which he gave as 12.5, needs to be up around maybe 14. And if you're going to be really aggressive, maybe 14.5 or even 15. That 16 is probably pushing it a little bit, but if you can get a portfolio up there, you have to understand that it's probably going to contain a lot of non-traditional kinds of companies. To be small, we think that in today's world, small is about 3 billion or less. That gives us a reasonable size number of companies to look at. It also gives us an idea that you might look at 3.1 or 3.2 billion, but we do like to shop still in the maybe 800 million to 2 billion area, because that's the sweet spot for these small companies. That's where a lot of them exist that give you the kind of growth that you want to deal with. We also try to avoid the really, really small, and for us that would be under 10 million with a stock price under $5. So we try to avoid those penny stocks if we possibly can. Asset-based businesses are measured a little bit differently, and asset-based differences, those are banks and insurance companies, brokerage houses, things like that. For banks, a small bank, according to our bank expert in Better Investing, Ross Meredith, a small bank probably has total assets less than $25 billion. That's assets. That's not anything to do with earnings. That's not anything to do with sales or pre-tax profit. That's just its asset that the business is based on. And 25 billion or less is probably a small bank. We're looking for the best. That's not necessarily going to be a company that you would want to say, I'm going to try to stay invested in it for the next 5 or 10 years. Sometimes you don't have that much visibility going forward. So when we're looking for the best or for better small companies, we're looking for excellent quality, a decent par, which we can validate with the proof, and we're looking at manifest rank that puts those two things together and then tells us the stocks that excel in both of those characteristics. So there's always room for some non-core, very speculative positions, 3 or 4 of them in a list of 20, and we'll kind of point those out to you today as we go through our list. But I'm looking at the clock, Mark, and I think it's time to move on to the list if you're ready.
Go ahead and keep on rolling here. All right, here's just some of that background research that we share with everybody. This is the list of the top 20 mutual funds and exchange traded funds by their most of them are 10-year trailing performance. The ones that have the performance since column highlighted is less than 10 years. Those are all less than 10 years. But the attribute that is shared by, one of the attributes that's shared by all of these funds are those higher growth rate numbers that Ken was just talking about, with a couple of notable exceptions. And we'll probably dig into those during future bull sessions. But in general, more growth, as long as it's not too much of a good thing can be a bad thing, but enough growth, a prudent, a reasonable amount of growth is a really good idea when it comes to buying these companies. And by the way, you wonder how many company or how many funds, how many professional institutional funds beat the market by more than 5%? Well, your answer is right there, 19 as of this morning. 19. Not very many. So that's rare. If your investment club is in that realm, give yourself a pat on the back. Anything else you'd like to add here, Ken?
Oh, good job, Mark.
All right. This is just a real quick stop in on projected return on enterprise value. This, again, is a modified Joel Greenblatt formula. we use fairly extensively at Manifest Investing. Again, we're not going to dig into it too deeply right now. We do entire sessions. We'll be doing more sessions on this thought alone. The two takeaways that you want here, the reason we like it is because it doesn't rely quite as much on PE ratios. A lot of times some of these companies do not have PE ratios, or they have non-meaningful PE ratios. You don't need a PE ratio to calculate a proof. So the other thing that you should take away is that the projected annual return from your Section 5 of your stock studies should be in the neighborhood of the projected return on value. And Ken, you were sharing that one of the members of your club likes to underline the middle three letters, return on value.
Yeah, that just keeps everybody focused on what this is actually measuring. It's just another number. It's not the number, but it's another number that helps us do good stock studies.
And of course, we will be looking at a number of companies very early in their life cycles, so that's supportive. So we will use prove, assuming that it's going to resemble par, but we will be concentrating on prove quite a bit. This is just a smorgasbord of our favorite sources. I was throwing Fortune and Forbes under the bus, but apparently they are releasing some stuff, so I'll back up a little bit. They were in the doghouse Tuesday, though, for sure. And again, I think the most powerful source of ideas, if you were in the green room, you heard us teasing Marie Frank. All the people that you see there, Betsy Wills, Matt Spielman, Kim, Diane Grace, who gave us some great ideas last year. And of course, Kevin, with his tour of the Hoover's emerging companies. A lot of our ideas come straight from you. You'll see that when we list our final results here in a few minutes. Anything you'd like to add, Ken?
No, it's a great group of friends, Mark, and it's becoming you get the feeling that a community is building around doing some of these things, and that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So here, just a couple of quick looks at some of our favorite sources. If you take a look at the holdings of the Russell 2000 Growth ETF, the ticker symbol is VTWG. And of course, at Morningstar and a variety of other places, you can actually drill into the holdings. Harmony came within an inch of making our list, but a whole bunch of companies on there qualified for consideration, and we raked a number of them over the coals. This is the one that's the great mystery right now. There's a lot of people out there asking, Ken has a stake in Oklo, and Ken, we'd like to know, who are you and what have you done with our friend Ken Kavula?
I will tell you, however, Mark, that I have taken out all of my original money from Oklo, and I'm now playing with the casino's money. Okay, so all of my original money is now gone from Oklo, from my little tiny holding that I put into my wife's IRA maybe a year and a month ago, something like that. And we've been very happy with the results from that nuclear company. But at the same time, we understand that it's extremely speculative. I'm still not sure it has any earnings, and it only has 1 or 2 quarters of actual sales.
Yeah, it's still tracking pretty close to zero. So anyhow, Again, the idea is find the companies that are new names, exciting themes, and take a closer look. These happen to be ranked by their projected return on value. So this is where some of our ideas came from. Another one of our favorite sources, we dedicated a session a couple of weeks with Kevin to this one. And one of the reasons I wanted to put this one up here is this is actually from a year ago. You see the dates here. Look at some of these numbers. Look at the results, the returns. And again, it's just a pretty robust field of study opportunities for companies. Some of them are going to be a little bit bigger. Notice Deckers. And I tried for the guys over there in the heart of Illinois, I tried to get Ken to permit me to, let a $5 billion sales company in. I couldn't get him off the dime. He's a hardliner. All right, so Hoover's is a great source of ideas, and it's also a really great source of summaries and clips of companies. All right. Until a few hours ago, this slide was blank, and I was going to beat up on Fortune, but they actually have released their list, and we're trying to come up with that one. So if you can get access to Fortune and the 100 tickers we're looking for, we'd love to see it. This one is actually a tribute to Diane Grace, who gave us the idea for a year ago. So Diane's a perfect example of a member of our community. She will find the companies before Value Line does. So good, clean fun. Anything you wanted to add to this, Ken?
Not at all, except if you can find this list, send it to us, please.
Because we don't want to pay the Fortune subscription cost because we're cheap. We're frugal. We're frugal. All right. And Forbes, they're still kind of under the bus a little bit. They have not got their list out there. They're saying, well, maybe Thanksgiving time frame, or maybe not. In the meantime, they have what I would call unicorn chasing going on. But they have featured a couple of publicly traded companies in their 25, I think they call it their best performing small companies. And I think that guy looks like Jon Stewart. Am I crazy? Ken?
Could be his older brother, maybe. I don't know.
You're being met with silence, Mark, okay?
And that lack of silence, that was from Matt Spielman, who is an advocate for this company. So that's foreshadowing. All right.
That list, folks, contains an awful lot of privately held companies. So don't become frustrated when you can't find tickers for a lot of the companies on that list. They don't exist.
All right, and here's a resource that we were not familiar with. We should have been. I may have been in the past and just simply forgot. This is why Marie Frank is apologizing to my wife. Stockanalysis.com. And I just did a really quick screen for double-digit characteristics and threw a PE ratio in there to keep Ken happy. These are companies with earnings, even if they are small. But if it has a PE ratio, it has earnings. So this is just a clip. Ended up with 100 companies on this screen and just wanted to show some of the ideas. Cormitics almost made it, the very top one, CRMD. But Sezzle, that's one of those pay later consumer companies. Ken's Halozyme is on here. Again, it's just a pretty good field of opportunity to go hunting in. It's stockanalysis.com.
Mark, give us a real quick definition of EV in that third column, that third numerical column there.
Yeah, that screening criteria, if you're looking at EV, that's enterprise value divided by, and that's earnings before financial items. So what that basically is the reciprocal. It's 1 divided by the proof. It's turning proof upside down. So really, you're just looking for something like proof. It's just the inverse or the reciprocal of it. So it's just simply, in this case, we would be looking for the equivalent of proof between 12 and 20%. When you convert that to that ratio, you're looking for stuff in, 8 to 12 range, maybe 15. The other caveat is I'd be willing to bet a mortgage payment that they define enterprise value differently than we do. So that jumbles the math a little bit, but it's a factor. Okay? So the lower that EV number that you see in the third column, the better or the higher probability that it's going to be a decent looking return forecast and perhaps in the buy zone. All right, enough. Okay, here's our moment of silence before we get to work, Ken. This is just our reminder to check our emotions at the door as we do this. Because we had Cantel Medical, we used to groan about this company. After 3 straight losing years, it was one of our top candidates in 2021, and then Ken talked me out of it. And then it went on to it would have been, I believe, the best performing company if we had kept it. So sometimes this type of thing, again, check your emotions at the door and do your best. Now, if there are, reasons, if the wheels are truly coming off, you have to obviously account for that. But again, just our moment of silence, just to keep things grounded.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda. I could have been somebody. I could have been a contender.
I'll tell you, Kevin, that's exactly what I said to him when he showed me this slide, okay?
All right,
My
moving.
God, we're
Word
thinking
for
alike.
word.
Theory.
All right, moving on, because apparently I'm not allowed to grouse around here. Yes, that is Frost on the Pumpkin. It's time to get to work. These are our keepers from last year. We actually start with a wide open field. The candidates are populated by last year's occupants, but they have to win their way back on the list. So let's go ahead and talk about the companies we decided to keep. Go ahead, sir.
We're going to keep NICE on the list for another year, even though it disappointed us last year. You'll notice a steady decline in prices over the last 4 or 5 years. If you check that capture of the visual analysis right there, we think a lot of that has to do, and by the way, the analyst community kind of agrees with us. We think that a lot of that has to do with where the company is headquartered. It's headquartered in Israel. NICE is an enterprise software company. That's buzzwords for it'll help solve your problems. And NICE has been talking about helping companies solve problems by using artificial intelligence. And they've been talking about that since way before AI became something that was very trendy and talked about by everybody. NICE was using artificial intelligence models 5 and 6 years ago to help customers solve specific kinds of problems. They focus a lot on financial crime and compliance with laws, and they focus a lot on public safety and justice. What that means is that they help comb the databases in these various areas and help different agencies, individuals, companies, the list continues, help them determine whether what they're doing is on the right side of the law or maybe skirting some of the things that they should be aware of. So financial crime compliance, public safety, and justice are some of their bigger areas. In addition, they will serve almost any customer and try to help them complete almost any process that the customer is having problems with. It's a very interesting company that has phenomenal growth in sales and in earnings, and we feel that eventually, over the long term, the stock price will catch up to this growth in sales and earnings.
Okay. All right, this is our worst performer from last year. So I guess this is our Cantel medical moment here, Ken. Worst performer, but we still have very high expectations for this company. The company is actually ARS Pharma, but they are the company that makes the Neffy epinephrine nasal spray. So it's offering the opportunity to do away with the injectable needle and pen and replace it with a nasal spray. So they've been making fairly steady progress, pretty decent picture, probably running into some higher costs of advertising and that sort of thing. I went out because this is a very early stage company, promising, but early stage. 2 things. I asked Perplexity, that's an artificial intelligence engine, what would be a reasonable future profit for this company? And that's what you see pictured on the far right of the image there, the earnings out 3 to 5 years. They do face a competitive threat, and they have won round 1 over in Europe and the rest of the world and gotten kind of a stay of execution for the next 30 months. So that's hot off the press. So they do have a little bit more intellectual property protection for the next few years. So we continue to have a lot of decent expectations for this company as they roll out and reach more public schools and that sort of thing. And bright future ahead. Let's hope for the best. Now, Ken, you were talking about, go ahead and talk about your issue.
Is that a typo, Mark, at the bottom of the page where it says exclusively through 2039? Is that 2029 that you're really meaning?
Yeah, they're pursuing, in some cases, a 30-year time frame, but yeah, that's another 10 years beyond that waiting period.
Okay.
They're attempting to
All right.
secure. They have that.
The issue that has been brought to our attention by a couple of our folks in our community is that some state laws hold teachers from being sued if they use an EpiPen for a student to help save their life. But sprays are not included in the law. And the laws are going to have to be changed in some of the states in order to allow a teacher or a school employee to use these sprays to save a child's life. So I know that that kind of push in various legislatures is beginning. It's probably something that will not have any real push back on. But it'll need to be done so the teachers aren't ending up being sued for using one of these sprays.
All right. So let's hope for a good year ahead for them. Go ahead, sir.
This is Tecnoglass. It's a company that I own in a couple of my clubs. It's based in Miami, Florida, and it does most of its manufacturing in Colombia. And that's caused a little bit of price issue most recently, as there's been name calling going on between the president of Colombia and the president of the United States.
I'm stunned.
Tecnoglass is one of the largest producers of commercial glass, and they've moved big time into residential glass as well. If you go to their website, you'll see all kinds of glass that they produce, from glass that filters out ultraviolet light, to glass that can bend, to glass that is highly resistant to breakage. In other words, will withstand even a hurricane or a tornado. And their revenues come almost entirely from the United States. Big growth areas right now in Texas and Florida.
All right. Another one we've decided to keep is ACM Research. These guys are world class in the realm of keeping semiconductor manufacturing clean and compliant. They basically provide the equipment to do that. I was a little bit surprised and reminded that a vast majority of their business does take place in China. Not a Chinese company, but they do a lot of the production stuff in China. But again, up straight and parallel, a little bit of flatness, a little bit of cyclicality, but as Ken and I were talking about, probably a future bull session subject. Cyclicality, when you've got very high profit margins, is different from those companies where you have cyclicality in low profit margins. So we'll probably put that on the burner. Good company, and gives us a position in the semiconductor field.
This is United Therapeutics. The exciting thing about United Therapeutics, other than the visual analysis for the last 4+ years, is the fact that this company is dealing with organs. And that means finding ways to give people a new kidney or a new lung or a new liver or a new heart, for that matter, and to do it in ways that do not involve traditional kinds of transplant. They're looking at 3 basic models, and they're using these models over 4 different livers, and that's what that graphic is. I'm sorry, 4 different organs, and that's what that graphic is showing you at the bottom right of the page there. This is not United Therapeutics' moneymaker, however. Their moneymaker is in pulmonary arterial hypertension, normally referred to as PAH. It's a fairly rare disease, and it's the reason the company was originally founded. United Therapeutics is a public benefit corporation. There's not a whole lot of them around, but you have seen this very recently being attached to OpenAI, this name of type of corporation. United Therapeutics just had a brilliant report as far as their earnings were concerned. Their drugs for PAH and some of the related therapies have been selling very, very well. And you can see that the stock price is up near a 52-week high at the moment. United Therapeutics, I think, and I own it in a club, in a couple of clubs. I think United Therapeutics is a very, very interesting company to take a look at.
Very good. Also in Buttonwood. All right, and we're also going to keep Green Brick Partners. We love the theme long-term of home building. We realize that there's always going to be some flatness, some plateaus. We may be in one of those right now. I don't think we're in as bad of a plateau or a downdraft as apparently the rhinos and institutional analysts believe. But over the long term, this is a company that's well positioned, well managed. You can see that long-term stock price chart up and to the right. And again, another Matt Spielman special, but boy, these guys are really leveraged, and they're in some of the best places to be building houses for people in the United States right now. So we'll keep Green Brick. All right.
We're also going to keep Double Verify on our list. Double Verify is a digital media company. But what's interesting about Double Verify is it helps its customers, and its customers are businesses. It helps the customers get their advertising placed in places that won't embarrass them and in places that they have a great chance of actually having the advertisement being seen by their target audiences. So Double Verify will verify the placement of the ad, and then we'll try to optimize the placement to make sure that it is being seen by the target audience, and then we'll measure the outcomes. In other words, we'll try to give feedback to the company that's placing the advertisement as to the types of people that actually viewed the ad, and also how long and how much time was spent in viewing those different ads. There's a lot of buzzwords up in the company information in the description up there, but they do operate throughout the world, and it's a very, very large, small company. You can see that it deals with over 2,000 advertisers, and it's evaluating over 300 billion different digital signals on a daily basis.
Wow. Good thing for artificial intelligence. All right. And we're also going to keep long-time best small company list resident Axos Financial. It's been on the list a number of years. All the characteristics are on the right that you can see, the book value going in the right direction, earnings in the right direction. One of the major performance metrics for any bank, return on equity, you can see that's basically a flat line right at 15 or 16%. And then, of course, one of our favorite final links in the chain, return on assets. Anything above 1 is good. Anything above 1.5 is really, really good. When you start living up in the 1.5 to 2% range, and you can see that actually Axos Financial has made a move back in that direction, really good stuff. So this is a solid bank. We were looking for somebody to give us a little bit extra stability in the portfolio, and as you can see, those red trend lines, the sales and the earnings have been hitting those. So this one is pretty consistent. It's not to say they can't have some challenges, but with the credit markets or whatever, but pretty good track record. And this one also was, we were reminded to take another look at this one by stockanalysis.com. All right, I'm going to double down, and then Ken will close us out here with starting off the next round. But yesterday was quite a day for those of us that track Ardelyx, and we've been tracking it for a number of years. What they do is basically improve the lives of kidney dialysis patients. That's what they do. They make a pill which is basically like a Tic Tac instead of a whole bunch of horse pills to be taken all day long for somebody who is faced with this challenge. They came out with good sales and good earnings on Thursday night. The stock price went from $4 and something to nearly $7. It peaked out at $6.73. So they had a really, really good day. That's why I mentioned earlier they moved up the chart for the companies that we picked last year pretty dramatically. So we've been tracking this company for a long time. They've faced a number of channels. The thing that Ken notices about this chart is there is actually a blue line now. So earnings have appeared, and hopefully those are going to go in the right trajectory. Notice that this has been a roundtable selection going all the way back to 2015 and a stock price of $10.91. And he selected it several times. The reason that's important is Hugh McManus is a pharmaceutical scientist and a charter knight of the round table. And he's made some pretty good selections over the years. So I kind of jumped on the bandwagon a few years later, and you can see that my selections are doing pretty well. That's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to jinx it. Ken says that anytime I point something like this out, it jinxes me. But
I celebrate Ardelyx, Mark, because it's a big piece of the roundtable, and we'd love to see the roundtable returns move back towards that +5 again. So I celebrate it with you.
okay, well, it tacked about 0.2 on yesterday, thanks to Ardelyx. So we like that.
And
Right, so
that's going
go
to
ahead.
end real soon.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the companies we are adding to the list. These are our newcomers. Go ahead, Ken.
We're going to start with Badger Meter. Badger Meter is not an especially exciting company, but it certainly fits the idea that you should be looking for small companies that look as good as or better than your medium and large size companies. Check out that visual analysis, folks. That's up straight and parallel to the nth degree, and that's prices generally staying in line with sales growth and earnings growth. They're not getting overly excited or overly pessimistic. Badger Meter shareholders get nice, dull, boring year after year after year returns that seem to do better each year. They've been around for over 120 years, and they basically deal with all kinds of meters that measure liquids. And specifically, they're a huge provider of meters to the water industry. Water is going to be something that is already extremely important to the world, but it's going to become, in my opinion, more and more important as we need it to do all kinds of things besides just provide beverages to human population. Most of the revenue for Badger Meter comes from the US. It's not a flashy grower, but it's a consistent grower, and we have a place for those kind of companies on this list.
Yeah, and one of the things we wanted to point out is this company appeared on the Better Investing small company screen, the preset screen that you can get at Better Investing, and I'm pretty sure that's what this reference on the page is too, as part of this study. All right, Ken, you're up again with Optex Systems. I'll set the table for you. This is a Groundhog Challenge selection by the Golden West Model Club out in California. They're on the leaderboard, and this is one of their selections for this year in the Groundhog
And
Challenge.
we're going to go from a very consistent grower to another consistent grower, but with a consistency that's only been around since maybe the pandemic. This company offers all kinds of pieces, parts, units to military craft, military vehicles. That's the Abrams tank that you're looking at right there on the screen. And you can see all the different parts that Optex provides to the Abrams, but they're also providing all kinds of parts to a number of other major vehicles that are used by the U.S. military. 90% of its business is government business with the United States military or with militaries in other countries, and only 10% of its business comes outside of government funding. It's basically talking about lasers, about filters for lasers, and about optical sighting instruments. Think of it as big, fancy different kinds of telescopes that help see what it is that you're basically shooting at. That's probably enough to talk about on this company, dealing with all kinds of fighting vehicles, whether they're light armored or security or whatever. Optex is putting parts into those vehicles.
Okay. Let's talk about a new one for me. This one is a discovery, a new discovery, Krystal Biotech, and it's not terribly new. I mean, they've gone through their early period, and they have actually reached the point where they have real earnings, multi-dollar real earnings. You can see them here on the extended edition of value line. Current year, last year, current year, and the projections look pretty interesting. And basically what it comes down to is they have a number one malady that they're basically fixing. And it's this, I can't even pronounce it. I'll just go with Deb. It's a skin disorder which is characterized as fragile skin, where you get tearing and bruising. And you can see that the young lady on the right there has red marks all over her arms and bandages all over her body. Well, their solution is to basically be a catalyst for collagen formation, when the collagen basically helps to heal the skin and toughen things up. And they have 9,000 patients globally, and they've been coming along pretty well. The exciting thing is you can actually extrapolate this into a few other areas, including some of the challenges with the aging of eyes, and they're also into oncology, decent pipeline. And then I also asked ChatGPT, with a company like this, narrowly focused on a fairly rare disorder, although it's not rare to the people who have it, what might the total addressable market be for this company? And they come up with a number in the $5 to $10 billion of dollars. And it's not complete science fiction to think that pipeline, operating in some very compelling areas, could be quite a good story. Again, the earnings outlook for the next year and the year beyond is quite favorable, and they do have a playing field. So Krystal Biotech, the ticker is KRYS.
Pathward Financial, I'm a big believer that financial companies belong in portfolios, and Pathward Financial is a very interesting company. It operates in two basic divisions. The first division is a very traditional regional bank. The second division is a fintech company which helps bridge the gap between businesses and customers. So if you have a card that you use to make a charge payment at a certain business, then at some point that payment has to get to the merchant, has to get to whoever is going to receive the benefit of your purchase. And that takes a little bit of electronic jiggering back and forth. You have to go through a number of different paths. Therefore the word Pathward, and you have to get the right payment to the right person. That's the kind of services that Pathward then provides. The business is split pretty evenly, 50-50 into those two divisions, and I just think it's an extremely interesting financial company with a good solid regional bank attached to it, and then this completely separate fintech business that is also very forward-looking.
All right, let's let the foreshadowing continue. Vital Farms. In fact, Matt, if you want to chime in here, this is an idea borrowed from Matt Spielman, made a presentation, what was it, a couple months ago, Matt, at the roundtable?
First in July as my own last-minute substitution. Found out of a manifest screen, and then back in August because I found out more and liked it more.
And why don't you go ahead for the next minute or two, describe the opportunity that you see.
Oh, you give me a time limit, huh? All right. So Vital Farms is like United Therapeutics, is a public benefit corporation. The focus of its largesse, if you will, or benefit is for both animal welfare and family farms. Their focus is eggs. That's why this is eggs all over, although they do have a small business in butter. They started in 2007 in Austin, Texas, and their first customer outside the Austin farmers market was Whole Foods. They've grown with them. They've only been public since 2020, as you can see in the SSG up on top. They're growing like a weed, growing historical sales at 35%. They are lightly covered, but they were added actually to the Value Line Standard Edition in July. But The basic premise here that interested me is if you look at revenue forecasts in particular, and even the company's own long-term guidance, which only goes to 2027, you come away with the curious question: why would a company that apparently is going to cut its growth rate in half be racing to double its capacity? And that's the picture on the bottom. Not only are they growing the red dots are all the family farms. They have a processing station in Springfield, Missouri. They call it Egg Central Station. And you can see they have the Cornerstone machinery, which is in the lower left. They've added twice, and they're just completing it now in Springfield, Missouri, and adding another one in Seymour, Indiana. And this is all in the pasture belt, which is a Goldilocks area that allows chickens to be outside all through the year, basically. Never too hot, never too cold. And they're kind of getting to the east side of that, where they're heavily built to the west. So it's a very high grower. They're actually building this doubling of capacity out of their cash flow. They have a small amount of debt. It's basically trade debt. But they're growing and they're profitable enough in this industry, which is generally a commodity industry. There's actually an index. The Southeast Urner Berry Large is the West Texas intermediate of the egg industry, but they are with a premium brand name and a specific type of egg, which is very desirable and is widely available and growing as fast as they can put out. If you are interested in this company, I would encourage you to look at their largest competitor. The largest one in the industry is Cal-Maine Foods, ticker symbol CALM, C-A-L-M. They look like a bargain. They're actually a PE of 3, and they're yielding 9%, but be warned, they are a cyclical company at a cyclical high. And I would also encourage you to look at the Cal-Maine Foods frequently asked questions on the bird flu epidemic. That bird flu epidemic that you might remember from the late pandemic days actually is still ongoing. The U.S. flock is 10% lower than it was in 2022, even to this day. And Vital Farms' distributed method isn't why they made it, but their distributed method of family farms is a natural defense against that.
Neat.
Finally, what I haven't covered is this is a company who has 30% of their float sold short. So if you need a short squeeze on top of that, there you go. Lots of things to do. They report third quarter earnings next week, and they have a investor day on December 16th. So lots of information coming.
Cool stuff. Thank you, Matt. All right, from that to Halozyme, another roundtable selection. Go ahead, Ken.
Halozyme is a company that has developed a chemical, and that's what enhance is. I think that's a play on the word enhance. But enhance is a way to take something that used to have to given in a doctor's office in an infusion over a long period of time, and it allows it to be delivered to a patient subcutaneously in a very short amount of time. There's all kinds of drugs that have been able to use ENHANZE, and you're starting to see them advertised on television now, where a patient can actually do a self-injection of something that used to take them a couple of hours to sit in a doctor's office with an infusion. The graphic on the bottom left talks about what's happening for many patients today, where the medical field requires the patient's life to fit the treatment. And Halozyme's vision is for the medical field to fit the patient's life. That's a very real change in direction on how we treat patients in a lot of different disease right now. Halozyme's on the leading edge of that, and again, changing infusions to subcutaneous injections doesn't sound like a big deal, but to people that have to get these types of medications 4 times a month or twice a month or even monthly, it frees up all kinds of time for these folks and makes life much more convenient and easy. The name of the company is Halozyme, ticker HALO.
Good stuff. All right, here's my tribute to that generation of investors who seem to be accessing the stock market a little bit more. Some of the stuff we see is just fascinating. And this particular company is a cloud computing platform offering. Now, that it's definitely buzzwords on parade, but these guys have a very well-regarded solution that is very distributed. A variety of different companies involved, and it's got all the AI buzzwords associated with it. Probably a competitor will consider it a horse race, perhaps a little bit with NICE. One of the things we could mention about NICE is it's not all just bombs going off overhead in Tel Aviv that's been making people nervous. This is a field of competitive threat to NICE, although it's not showing up yet in the operating performance for NICE systems. But this would be an example of a company out there that is probably directly competing. So they're through their original launch stage in their lockdown shares. So they're through that period. A little bit flat on the earnings, but with a pretty positive outlook for the next 3 to 5 years, and just operating in a number of very hot spaces for the area of opportunity for us. So DOCN, DigitalOcean. Speaking of crossing oceans and technology,
Oddity Tech, a Kevin Gillogly presentation to the roundtable a number of months ago, also headquartered in Israel. Oddity Tech, I didn't have a really good idea of what they did until I did a little bit of reading on it. Imagine 50 years ago, if you were in the neighborhood for makeup, you would go to a high-level department store and sit in front of a counter and have a person, usually a woman, try all kinds of makeup and test and try to sell you all kinds of things to make your skin more glowing and make your look more attractive. My aunt did that as a living for about 30 years, and I always used to go and refer to her as a John Roberts Powers girl, because that's the way my grandmother talked about her. But today you can do the same thing in your home, and you can do it with an AI assistant. That's what Oddity Tech is doing. If you've never experienced something like this, why not become one of the 60 million or more users and give it a try? If you're looking for makeup and makeup suggestions, this is a way to get involved with that kind of interaction without having to leave your home.
All right, Ken, so if you're not going to buy me a Ferrari for Christmas, maybe a subscription to this. You think I need makeup?
Well, no, I think you're just fine the way you are, Mark. Okay.
Can I answer that one?
No. Somebody mute him. Good stuff. Thank you. All right, speaking of crossing oceans, let's talk about a company from Australia. Pretty cool. We've got some pretty active participants from Australia. I'm thinking of Kelly and her band out of the Australian outback. Anyhow, the company is IREN. The ticker is IREN. It was formerly known as Iris Energy Limited. And again, this is another tribute to the future of data centers and the wise, prudent, reasonable generation of the power needed for those data centers. This particular company, you can see they've got a track record. They've been putting stuff online for the last several years. And yes, Ken, they have earnings. They have facilities in places like British Columbia, West Texas, and a few others around the world. But what they basically do is they locate these in very strategic locations, which can either take advantage of wind power or solar power, and then they are getting into some of the other stuff. I expect to see them located on a geothermal site at some point, but they are attempting to generate power with renewable sources. more power to them. Well, that's a terrible pun this morning, but they also do generate Bitcoin, which burns some electricity also. And I just think it's an interesting idea. Lo and behold, it has caught fire in the last few days. In fact, it was up as much as 10% yesterday morning. So I thought maybe it was going to just actually do that escape velocity move. But again, it's hitting all the right buttons, and they do have a track record. And this is definitely speculative, but some very high interest areas right now. All right. Go ahead, Ken, with your UFPT.
I used to think of UFPT as a packaging company, and that's still the industry that it's classified in. But UFPT actually does a lot more than just packaging things. It manufactures a lot of things, and there's some pictures of some of the things that UFPT actually makes and then packages. It's one of the largest providers of of drapes for robotic surgery in the entire world. And those drapes are very important. They're disposable, and you need a new one every single time you're going to do something like that. They do a lot of different materials, and then they develop packaging for other manufacturers when the packaging needs to be very specific and do a very special kind of thing, whatever that might be. You can see that here's another company, sort of like Badger Meter, where the lines are generally up straight and parallel, and where I'm looking at a company that I really couldn't determine whether it's small, medium, or large by just looking at its growth tendencies. I think UFPT is a great kind of company to have on a list like this because it gives us a little bit of stability to balance out some of the much more explosive, much more speculative kind of companies that we have on the list. And I offer for your consideration this UFPT. It was the audience choice at the most recent roundtable that we did last week.
All right. Giving the Ken Kavula groupies credit. You got to like it. All right. I think this is our last one. Going to go with a really speculative, non-traditional pick here. And I have actually switched. I called an audible. We used nukes last year. Want to use a different exchange-traded fund from First Trust with the ticker symbol RCTR for reactor, obviously. But the same type of companies with a couple of notable exceptions. Their Cameco nuclear fuel is actually fallen off the chart at nukes, off the top 10 anyhow. It's still near the top of this one. And this is in homage to Betsy Wills and her insistence that we pay some attention to this. Her BWX Technologies is on the list there. You see Ken's Oklo, a number of traditional utilities. And then that one up at the top, we're going to have to do some homework on this one, Doosan Enerbility. Never heard of them before, but they are the number one holding in this particular reactor. Again, the small modular reactor stuff is real, and it dovetails with the previous slide that I did on the Australian energy company that is also working on data centers. But I just think this one is, again, right at the same area, and with 5% of our best small company portfolio, at least we have a toe in the water here. And yes, Oklo is going to generate some revenues. I'm not sure how far out the earnings are, Ken, but we'll tolerate you.
Yeah, NewScale Power is also a very small holding that I speculated on more than a year ago, and that's just off this list of top holdings in this particular ETF. We're changing ETFs because we've heard from some of you that you were having trouble at your broker buying NUKZ. I'm not sure why, because Mark and I were both able to buy small positions in that particular ETF, but we're looking at a First Trust ETF that we have a lot of faith in, and RCTR will be our new ETF for the nuclear power industry going forward.
All right, and so with that, here is a summary of the 20 selections that we've made. I also made an effort to show where some of the ideas originated from. Now, it's not meant to be all-inclusive, so don't be offended. For example, again, our thoughts go out to Marie, and you can see there's a number of stockanalysis.coms. ARS is courtesy of Janet Blaser over there in New York, Rochester, New York. And just going down the list, Kris Jenner added to his position in Ardelyx, and that kind of cemented it for me. But again, you see the source, and a lot of people that we have mentioned over the years are on this list. So Ken, I thought we'd spend a moment just talking about how, we basically we're aiming for 14, 16, maybe a little bit more on the growth side. We X'd out the ones that were more speculative just so we could look at basically the core part of the portfolio. Are you comfortable with 17, or are you?
I'm comfortable enough with it, Mark. I am very comfortable with the fact that the par value and the proof value are walking hand in hand with each other. That gives me a little bit more feeling of validation and a feeling of a small amount of safety when we're putting this kind of list together. When these two numbers basically coincide with each other, I'm feeling that our studies are more reasonable than not. I think that 17% growth forecast might be a little bit aggressive, on top of the fact that it's missing four of the numbers. But I think we have enough good, solid, small companies in here to kind of balance out some of the speculation. So let's give it a shot, and let's kind of leave it alone for 3 or 4 months and see what happens. Maybe around groundhog time, we can take a look at it again and see what's happening.
Absolutely, and I'm okay with the quality. We were shooting for 70 or above here, and that one came in pretty good. Here is a pretty vivid example of why maybe you give a company like Neffy a chance. I mean, they came in with flat sales for 25 versus 24, but they are projected to launch in the coming year. And you can just basically see, so we have one eye on that, the expectations for 2026 over 2025. And this one snuck in. We've got a little bit of a question. I think that might be some pessimism sneaking in there amongst the analysts to follow the companies. But overall, I mean, a pretty good solid picture. We talked for just a moment about how when companies do disappoint in the current year sales, the lower this number, the more they will disappoint. So with that in mind, we didn't want to have too much lower quality run amok, because then you are raising your risk profile or risk of volatility to the downside, in our opinion. So again, a growth forecast in that 16-17% range, quality of 70 and above, return forecasts in the teens, high teens. That is basically the construct of the portfolio from our perspective. All right. I think that's all we got. I'm showing 11:15. We can shut down the recording and perhaps field any questions if you'd like, Ken.
We're all set on questions, Mark. I've been covering some of those while you were speaking, and we're all set on everything. Okay. My hat's off to George Mackey again, who not only provided us with colony of rabbits that went on later to tell us that if they're wild rabbits, it's a fluffle, and if they're domestic rabbits, it's a herd. So we have 3 different terms for our rabbits depending on what kind of rabbits they're going to be, okay?
And I'm going to use that somewhere.
All right, the fluffle, I could see it coming right now, okay?
All right, that's a picture of Lake Superior in the back behind us. I've never seen it as calm as it is on the left behind Ken. I'm more familiar with the Lake Superior on the right. So you can get either one with any one of these small companies. Keep that in mind as you do your shopping and your reasonable considerations of these companies. And with that, Mark, I would just say,
if we shut down, then we do have a hand in the air, and we'll take that hand after we shut down, okay?
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording then. Thanks, everybody.